Hey guys, so let's try this again. This is take 2 of my World IBD Day thing. So, you may or may not know, but I have ulcerative colitis, and you can scroll all the way down to my earliest videos because I talk about that quite a lot. Ulcerative colitis is something called an inflammatory bowel disease, which this is a day late because yesterday was actually World Inflammatory Bowel Disease Awareness Day. So I'm going to just get into my story. It cut me off at 25 minutes just a few minutes ago, just from talking about this for so long. So I began having symptoms in December of 2015. I went back and forth between having constipation and diarrhea. Oh, by the way, this is going to be TMI. Just so you know, because I am talking about bodily functions and all that. So if you don't want to hear that, click out of the video. Anyway, I would have diarrhea for a couple weeks, then go back to constipation, then a couple weeks later, diarrhea, just like this never-ending cycle. It took me probably a month after actually starting to get scared that this might be something terminal to convince my mom that I needed to see a doctor. Keep in mind that I was 20 years old, almost 21 at this point, and I had not been to see a doctor since I left my pediatrician at the age of 18. So I spent a month telling my mom that this isn't normal. Finally, I began taking pictures of the toilet bowl before I would flush, because usually, more often than not, it would just be blood. At first, my mom thought it was my period or something. I'm like, no, wrong hole. This is different. It's not normal. I need to see a doctor. So she finally got me in after a couple days of trying to call around, and she's like, okay, I'll try and get her in to see the nurse practitioner that I see. So my mom calls her doctor's office. They get me in to see the nurse practitioner that my mom sees just 2 days later. Thank God. So most of this happens over the course of a week. So nurse practitioner does a rectal exam, checking me for hemorrhoids. She doesn't find anything, so she refers me for an emergency colonoscopy. So I thought she was checking me for cancer. She thought I actually had a precancerous polyp, which that needs to be removed ASAP because, yeah. So they're able to get me in with a gastroenterologist named Dr. Eckert, who I still see. They get that colonoscopy scheduled just 2 days later, because I do have to have a day for the prep work, so I can't start it the day that I see the nurse practitioner, because I've had a normal diet, or as normal a diet as I could possibly stand that entire day, and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that night my mom goes to the pharmacy and picks up my prep packet, I guess. Let me tell you, the prep work for a colonoscopy is the worst part of the entire thing, because you have to clean out your gut. And so you are basically given a laxative for hours on end just to make sure that there is nothing left in there. You're on a clear liquid diet the day before the colonoscopy. You can have, usually they'll allow you to have something solid in the morning. So eat something with lots of protein in it, like potatoes, eggs, stuff like that. Something that'll stay with you throughout the day. And then a few hours later, after you have your breakfast, you have to start the clear liquid diet. My doctor allowed me to actually have soda. I was able to drink Coke or Dr. Pepper until a certain time. I was was able to eat Jell-O, icicles, or popsicles, stuff like that. And then, I think probably around 4 p.m. I had to actually start drinking the liquid laxative. That stuff was gross. They gave me like a flavor packet and told me it tastes a little bit better if you chill it. So I put the flavor packet in it, put it in the fridge that morning, and just let it like sit there chilling out. That I almost threw it up several times. But I didn't need to drink as much as they told me to, thank God. I didn't even have to drink half of the gallon. Yeah, they gave me a gallon and told me to drink the whole gallon. Mom called one of her nurse friends and she's like, oh, if her stools are running clear, she's fine. And I knew that wouldn't take that long because 1, I'd been on a clear liquid diet most of the day, and 2, I hadn't been passing much stool over like the last month. So yeah. There may have been a little bit of blood mixed in with whatever I was passing, but it was all good. So I went in for my colonoscopy. Doctor diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis pretty much right then and there. He did take just a couple of biopsies because some of the ulcers looked a little bit weird to him, but everything came back saying that it was ulcerative colitis. I didn't have any precancerous polyps, nothing like that. So yeah. The nurse practitioner had put me on iron supplements to help with the anemia, just to build the blood count back up, but it wasn't working. The GI doctor put me on something called Lialda, and that worked for about a year and a half. So back to the iron supplements not working. I ended up having to get a blood transfusion a month after going on the iron supplements. So I started the iron pills, and then I would get weekly blood draws just to like keep an eye on my hemoglobin levels. But instead of it going up like it was supposed to, it was going down. So at a certain point, I think when your hemoglobin level reaches 9, at least for women, they recommend a blood transfusion. So that's what we did. It took a while once we got to the hospital to get everything set up, just because it was after hours for the main outpatient registration. I had to go through the ER, and obviously any ER in the evening is probably going to be busy. So we got through that. They took me back to my room, got me hooked up to my IV. They actually had to try the IV 3 different spots, one in the bend of my elbow, one in my wrist. They blew both veins, and then finally they tried the back of my hand. And I can still see the scar. I don't think it'll show up on camera. No, you can't see it. But they had to put the IV in my hand, and that is very uncomfortable. It makes your hand cramp up. The slightest movement will pull on the IV cannula thing, and just, yeah. So that was fairly routine. That one went like it was supposed to. I was there until 3 a.m. because I had to stay like an hour later just to make sure that I didn't have any kind of reaction. So back to the Lialda. That worked for a year and a half, and I was even on it when I went through my the Disney college program. But as soon as I came back from Florida, I started to flare again. So we upped my dosage of the Lialda. They put me on prednisone, which I hate prednisone with a passion. It is disgusting. You've seen me on it too. I don't like it. Everything seemed to be going okay. I was getting a little bit better, but as soon as we started to wean me off of the prednisone, I would just start to get worse. So my doctor put me on something called Indocort. It's like a slow release steroid thing, only supposed to be released in the gut. But I did develop 2 wonderful side effects. One was acid reflux, which I still have. It never went away. I think it's actually GERD at this point, but I haven't had an upper scope, and I guess as long as it's as mild as it is, it's okay. And then I also had bowel incontinence, which is very embarrassing when you're in your 20s at work. But yeah. So I stopped taking the Indocort after 4 months. About 3.5 months into the Indocort, I actually got shingles, which is probably the most painful thing I have ever experienced. It just felt like a hot iron being held to my skin constantly. I had it kind of like along my left shoulder blade, but it like curved around my side and under my breast. Very, very painful, and even to this day, sometimes clothing, if it like brushes a certain spot, my bra, if I wear it for too long, it irritates like that line, that nerve. Yeah. So I stopped taking the Indocort, and I was just on the prednisone because when I got the shingles, it threw me into another flare, and my doctor didn't think the Indocort would help much longer. So we started the process for getting me on Humira, and in the meanwhile, I actually had to have another blood transfusion. This one did not go as smoothly as the other one. The nurse actually just about killed me, I think. So before they start giving you the blood for a blood transfusion, they have to give you a saline solution, just to like help open the veins, help get you hydrated again, because normally if you're anemic, severely anemic like I was, you're also a little bit dehydrated, and it just helps the blood to like combine with your own. So the nurse put the saline solution on to like set the pump to go too fast because one, I was absolutely tiny. I was down to 68 pounds, I think, at that point. And I also have a mitral valve prolapse, so it's like my body just couldn't absorb everything, and it was draining my heart. Later I found out that I was actually beginning to go into congestive heart failure because so much fluid was building up around my heart and lungs. I could not breathe. I was coughing like crazy, just trying to tell her that something was wrong. I hit my call button. My mom ran to get the nurse. She finally slowed it down a little bit. And finally it came time to begin the actual blood transfusion. So every blood transfusion, there has to be 2 people that checks out the unit of blood that the patient is being given. The nurse and usually like a tech or another nurse, sometimes even the charge nurse, but there has to be 2 people signing off that this unit of blood is okay to give to this patient. And every unit of blood has like an ID number tagged onto the bag, but the ID number on the bag that she was trying to give me would not check out in the computer. Like, it wasn't even in the system. So for some reason, and I still don't know why, she went ahead and hung the blood on my IV pole and was getting ready to actually start the transfusion. And the other nurse ran down to the lab to get a new bag, a new unit of blood. I start to freak out because I'm like, this isn't checking out. Who knows if it's actually okay to give me, because if it's checking out, it's the right blood type and everything's fine. But if the number isn't in the system, likely it wasn't put in there by the lab or the blood bank, and yeah, that can cause some problems. So my mom runs to get the charge nurse. I'm like, no, you can't do that. As I'm coughing, still just trying to get breath. So the charge nurse comes in. She basically yells at the nurse to stop. The nurse takes the bag of blood off of my IV pole and just throws it in the trash can rather than like the red biohazard can that she's supposed to. I don't think that nurse finished out the night because the charge nurse handled everything for the rest of the night for my blood transfusion. After that, everything was fine, but still. But anyway, after that, I started the process for getting on Humira, and we ran into a lot of issues with the insurance. Prior notifications were denied. It was just like a mess. Finally, I find out about a patient assistance program after getting the news of how much we were going to have to pay for the medication. It just, yeah, we couldn't afford it. So I found out about a patient assistance program through the company that actually makes the medication. And yeah, like I actually would get 3 months supply free of charge. Thank God. Now I do have to pay $100 a month through my husband's insurance, but that's still a lot better than having to pay $1,000 a month. Yeah. So I've really only ever had 2 side effects with the Humira. One is nausea. So my GI doctor prescribed me Zofran, which is just like something to help with the nausea. It's an anti-emetic medication, which means it keeps you from vomiting. And he told me, like, take the Zofran half an hour before you do your injection and you should be fine. And yeah, that works. But my other side effect was actually peripheral neuropathy, which a very rare side effect of this particular medication is nervous system problems, which peripheral neuropathy is a nervous system problem. Neuro is the medical term for nerve, and opathy is the medical term for, I think, disease or disorder. It's disorder. So yeah, and then peripheral is just like your arms and legs, feet and hands. It's not central like your spinal cord and brain. So I'm on gabapentin for that. So yeah, my life with this is crazy, but I have adapted fairly well, and for the most part, I have a very normal life. It's just like the first few years were kind of difficult to get into the routine with the medications and finding something that worked and all that. And I'm really hoping that the Humira continues to work as well as it does, because it's what keeps me healthy enough to work a full-time job. Right now I'm not like full-time, I'm part-time, but sometimes I feel like I'm full-time. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Go educate yourself on different diseases. This could, I guess, technically be classified as like an invisible disability, because a lot of people with one of these diseases can't work, can't lead as much of a normal life as I do. I have a milder form of the disease, but it's a little bit more difficult to control. It only affects like the descending part of my colon, everything from like here down to my rectum. It's called left-sided colitis. It's not quite as severe as like pancolitis, which is your entire colon. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. But anyway, thanks for watching. Try and educate yourself. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching.